Hey, what's up, Adam? What's up, guys? Swift here. We're going to be talking some Chicago Bears draft talk today. It's been kind of slow, but we do have some news on top 30 visits. Caleb Williams got his done, and some other things to talk about. What's going on, Adam? How you doing today?
Hey, man, good to do this. It's exciting to see the chat bar already. This is fun. Whenever we do this together, I love chopping. It's fun with you, man.
Always is, man. Always is, and I think it's a good time because I'm pretty sure now. I think the Bears have now fully zeroed in on Caleb Williams. With the news, if this is true that he's really not going to be meeting with any other teams and his only top 30 visit is with the Bears, and it went well, and as you said in your video this morning, was when I learned this, that Tyreek Stevenson and DJ Moore were also out to dinner with them. I think all signs are pointing towards Caleb Williams being the guy. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's pretty foregone at this point. It would take a Herschel Walker type of surprise trade to trade out of one at this point. And even then, there's so many things that you can connect the dots on. What Eberflus said at the combine, they sat down for 80 minutes together and talked. He even said he opened up the playbook to him then. Having DJ Moore, I mentioned that a little bit on my video this morning. Having DJ Moore go to dinner with them, that's a huge sign that they're trying to make sure the culture gets instilled, because DJ Moore wasn't being negative. He was supporting his quarterback at the time, Justin Fields, and he was, saying, I don't think any of them are better than Justin Fields. Of course, you're going to say that, and he probably does still feel that way, just like a lot of us feel like Caleb Williams isn't proven yet. He's still a college prospect, but bringing him in to go to dinner with him, having some guys there, that's what you do to set the tone of the culture and say, hey, look, we're bringing him in. Let's get as many touch points. Ryan Poles and Matt Eberflus keep talking about touch points. Well, those touch points are going to dinner together, getting them to establish a relationship. Because as it is now, DJ Moore's wide receiver 1, QB 1, wide receiver 1. Those two have to have the tightest connection. So everything's pointing. It'd be a shock. It would be a shock to even someone like me that wanted the haul to see Caleb Williams not the Bears quarterback at this point.
Yeah, I think everything seems like that's the direction the Bears are going, and the focus now is really shifting towards what do we do with that number 9 pick and making sure that we continue to put him in a situation to succeed as early on as his rookie season, because that's something I think that now that the decision has been made to go ahead and move on with another quarterback, now it becomes about doing what's best for him and not making the same mistakes that these previous regimes have made.
Yeah, so the thing right now on Twitter, Twitter's good for some information. It's good to get some breaking news from Albert Breers, Ian Rappaport, those type of guys. But the biggest thing is they're trying to compare the Texans situation to the Bears situation and say, well, look what CJ Stroud did and how he came in and changed at year one. People need to understand football. CJ Stroud didn't come in year one of that turnaround. They had been rebuilding for a couple years, and then they inserted CJ Stroud, and CJ Stroud didn't have the best metrics last year. If you're going off your stat sheet, yeah, he had a great stat sheet year, but he was one of the worst poor passing quarterbacks. He was one of the worst adjusted completion percentage quarterbacks. Doesn't mean he sucked, but as a rookie, he got put into a situation where he was able to take off year one, and the Bears are absolutely in that situation. We're not year one of this rebuild. We're year 3. And then if you look at next year having 10 draft picks, next year this is a year where you take Caleb Williams and you don't expect the Super Bowl run. You want to get to the playoffs. Realistically, Bears fans need to temper it a little bit. Are we better than the Lions right now? Are we better than the Packers right now? Probably not, if we're being honest.
Could be.
We can compete with them 100%, and we want to, and we expect it, and it's about damn time that we say it's time to beat the Packers, and we can do that with this team. But have we proven it yet? No. This is the year where that comes into play, and let's hope we get to 10, 11, 12 wins. But really next year with 10 draft picks, Caleb Williams with 1 year under his belt, that's when you really see this thing come together. So we would like to have a CJ Stroud type of year this year, make it to the playoffs, win a game. But this isn't year one of a rebuild. It's not like we're drafting Trevor Lawrence for the Jaguars back in 21. It's not like we're drafting Bryce Young as the Panthers with the worst pick last year. This is not the worst team. We're a good team adding a good quarterback to it.
And you can see it just by looking at the depth chart here. talent all across the roster. This is something that it didn't look anything like this 2 years ago when we got here. This is something that Ryan Poles has worked hard on. He's made tough decisions by trading away fan favorite players such as Justin Fields, Khalil Mack, and Roquan Smith. He's let other guys like Darnell Mooney walk, and he's made his mistakes along the way as well, trading for guys like Chase Claypool, drafting Velus Jones Jr. But when you're still looking at the job he did overall here, like this roster, it looks a lot better than it did point in time during Justin Fields' entire tenure with the Chicago Bears. And this is before we add in pick number 9, pick number 75, pick number 122, any trades he makes with that, as well as any other free agent moves he makes along the way. I think right now we're just setting in a good position to go ahead and be competitive starting as early as this season. And I do agree with you. I think fans, we probably should temper our expectations a little bit, but I also think we should have higher expectations because
100%.
this isn't the same regime as the past. They haven't done things the same way. So I think we expect more from this. We expect more wins, and we expect it to come. We've already been waiting for a few years now. We understand it's going to be a rookie quarterback, but he is arguably going to be put in a better situation than CJ Stroud was last year. So expecting results similarly, I think so. I think looking at the Texans roster last year compared to what we have right now with that number 9 pick as well, I think we have a better situation. Do you agree with that, or do you agree with that?
Oh, I 100% agree with that. And when you have 2 of the top 10 wide receivers in the league, and you have the problem with me is I'm just worried about injuries. That's why I think expectations should absolutely be to go to the playoffs. We almost made the playoffs last year. I mean, there's no reason. We've improved the roster already significantly. So it's not a matter of I don't expect to go to the playoffs, but the thing that concerns me right now is we don't have depth. You pull up that starting rotation that you said we have, the top 22 guys there, and that looks pretty solid right now. That's a solid playoff competitive team. That team should compete for the playoffs. If you have Braxton Jones go down, if you have Tevin Jenkins go down, if you have Coleman Shelton go down, worst case scenario right now, if you have Nate Davis or Darnell Wright go down, we don't have starter quality depth on this team, and that's what scares me. So prepare for the best, expect the best, but we still have some work to do. There's still some work to do.
100%. I was trying to find I have one of it with our backups on it here as well, if you want me to throw that up.
I'm looking at some of these chats. I like the chats. We gotta hit some of these up. JC1 made this comment, and I want to hit that because we are going to talk about the combine and visits that have come in. He said, I wonder if Williams will visit with Washington without it being an official top 30 visit since he's from there or whatever. And I like that comment because right now it sounds like he won't. But the rumor you're hearing is J.J. McCarthy will visit the Bears still, J.J. McCarthy being from Chicago. And that's just a due diligence thing. Just because
when you guys see I don't think is it just hometown? I thought it also had to do with where they went to. It's the school they went to. So, both, I mean, both. He went to Michigan. If you grew up, Michigan's close enough that we did.
No, I don't think Michigan's close enough.
Well, we were able to do it with Michigan State last year. I know we had Jaden Reed in on a local visit, and he went to Michigan State.
But where did he grow up? I don't know.
I think he was from Chicago area, but he went to Michigan. I think it has to be a close school as well, or maybe not.
So the college, it's 2 criteria. It's the college that you went to has to be, I think, within a 50-mile radius of Hallis Hall, or you can grow up in that area. So Caleb Williams didn't go to school in Washington, D.C., but he grew up in D.C., so he gets a free top 30 visit with Washington. Same with J.J. McCarthy. He went to Michigan, which isn't within 50 miles, but he grew up in Chicago, so he can visit the Bears. So just because you see, I mean, the media will go nuts with that when JJ comes and visits the Bears, but all that is doing due diligence because they get a free top 30 visit. I don't think the Bears would use a top 30 visit on JJ if they didn't get a free one out of him. And so people will go nuts when they see that. It's going to cause more speculation, but the reality is we're taking Caleb Williams. And Caleb may or may not go visit with the Commanders. It sounds like he's more of a hard stance that he knows he's coming to Chicago, and the league just doesn't want the Bears to outright say, hey, we're taking him number 1, but everyone else is realizing it. In fact, you see that I think it was Jaden Daniels has visited both Washington and New England already. I mean, there's a lot of visits being done with other teams right now, and so they're all preparing as if Caleb's not going there. So I don't know the answer. Will he visit the Commanders? But you shouldn't read too much into it if he does, because it's a free visit, and it just depends on whether Caleb wants to spend his time doing that. But I don't think he will. I think he knows he's going 1-1.
Yeah, it sounds like it. And to hit Jackson's question here, I did realize the Texans had a solid O-line last year. That's something I've actually argued with people about. It's not that they had a great offensive line, and that's where you'll hear people create narratives. They didn't have a good run blocking offensive line, but their offensive line ranked top 10 in almost all pass blocking metrics. So therefore, I mean, as far as quarterback's concerned, that's the kind of O-line you want. And yeah, the local visits do not count as top 30 visits. Those are extra visits that basically teams get for free for local prospects. And we can start contract negotiations early with Caleb, but there's not really much negotiations anymore with everything being slotted, just kind of some terms and things that they agree on in there. But it's not like the money can really be negotiated much. There shouldn't be any chance of a holdout or anything like that. At least I hope
Just
not.
on that note of Houston's line last year for PFF's pass blocking efficiency. So the best grade last year was Miami, 89. And the worst grade was Tennessee at the high 70s. The Bears were 81.1. They were 26th. Houston was tied at 10th at 85. Miami was 89. Houston was 85 for their pass block efficiency grade. Bears were 81. So yeah, they had a good offensive line. They didn't have crap for CJ.
Yeah, I think that's what Jackson was saying as well, that they did have a good offensive line, and that's something a quarterback needs. I don't know if we're necessarily to that point yet where we have a good offensive line, but I do see the pieces starting to come together. I still think we need to continue addressing that and making it a priority going forward, especially after we take Caleb Williams. I think we have to continue attacking the trenches. But I want another wide receiver simply because this year's wide receiver class is stacked, and you get a wide receiver to pair with your quarterback for what could be their whole career. And you also have a couple USC receivers coming that have built-in chemistry already with Caleb. That can't hurt as well. And I think it's just a really good class. So I want a wide receiver either way.
And what do you think about Brendan Rice not rising any boards? In fact, you see more players rising up, and he keeps getting dropped down on draft boards. Now, that doesn't, again, I'm going to preface that doesn't mean that that's how teams see it, because everyone out here, the media, PFF, PFN, Walter Football, everyone who does their own mocks and creates their own list, that doesn't mean that's how the Bears see it, because they have their own mock draft board. They have their own thing in the war room. So they could have Brendan Rice at 60 for all we know, but he keeps dropping down. I mean, if you look at PFN now, he's like at 130, which is ridiculous to me.
I could see it. I have some issues with Brendan Rice. He's a guy who I want to love because he has the size, he has the speed, he's son of Jerry Rice, and you're like, this is a guy, and he's also he played with Caleb Williams. But when I watched him, even at the pro day with Caleb, he has trouble tracking the ball over his shoulder, and his hands can just be inconsistent at times. Also, he's sometimes can round his routes out. There's just a couple things that it's just not perfect with his game. So I'm perfectly fine if he drops. And if he's a guy who, if he's there at 75, I'd love to actually have him come onto the Bears team. He's a guy who it would work out perfect because he's already played with Caleb Williams. He wouldn't be coming in as a number 1 or number 2. He'd be coming in as a 3rd round pick and a guy who has the size to play X receiver, but he wouldn't be coming in anywhere near our number 1 target on our offense. That would be DJ Moore, and then Keenan Allen, and then Cole Kmet, and then maybe even Gerald Everett and DeAndre Swift. And Rice is just a guy who, if he has a one-on-one and beats a guy badly, hey, free pass. And he already has some built-in chemistry. He can get better and learn from DJ Moore and Keenan Allen. I think it'd be a great situation for him.
Yeah, I don't even know if he would go at 75 with the way and that's the cool thing is if we do get some kind of trade back and we get an extra pick there at the beginning of the 4th round, and he's still there, that would be a great chemistry builder right off the bat. The thing that I pointed out earlier that I liked about him, I didn't like his contested catch rate because it's one of the lower ones, 25%. I want to know why. Maybe it has to do with what you said about tracking the ball and him not tracking it as well.
His hands are inconsistent as well. Even on some of the slant routes over the middle that can be tightly contested, I saw it a lot where Caleb would put a ball right on him and it just kind of collapsed to the ground. And it's something that, considering he was Jerry Rice's son, I didn't expect to see it as much as I did.
But his drop rates are extremely low. In fact, he only had one game where he dropped the ball. He had one of the best drop rates, and that was the Notre Dame game. He dropped 2 balls, and that's all he dropped all year. His drop rate was 4%. Without that one game, he would have been one of the rare ones that had 0%.
And so I think some of them aren't quite considered drops, but they're balls that, if you go back to the Herman Moore philosophy of if you get your hand on the football, you should be able to come down with it. And that's what it is. There's a lot of balls that will like bounce off his hand or, just
those contested catches
go through, and it might not count as a drop because he's not hitting it in his hands and dropping it, but it's a pass that you'd expect him to come through with, considering how I view him as a prospect. It's the same. I saw a lot with it with Tez Walker. I have the same issue, is where they can do a lot of things, but sometimes they just don't complete the catch. And you wonder why, when a guy like Roman Wilson, who's much smaller, can make the same catch in tougher situations. As far as Adonai Mitchell, someone asked where he's supposed to go. He's a first rounder to me. I don't think there's any way AD falls out of the first round after his combine. He'll go somewhere in the 20s at the latest. If he's there at 32.
The thing that I liked about Brendan Rice was Caleb Williams' pass rating. NFL pass rating was 1. I did a graphic, stupid stats analytical. The receivers that had a higher NFL passer rating than their quarterback obviously were the best receivers for that quarterback. They made the quarterback better, or they were just the excelling receiver on the team. His NFL passer rating when targeted was 20 points higher than Caleb Williams. Not saying Caleb Williams is bad, but he obviously excelled in that situation. So I like that he brought out the best of Caleb. So that would be a good reason for the
there as well. I mean,
yeah,
I didn't see as much of it as I did the year before when he had Jordan Addison on the team. They had some elite anticipation, and some of the plays they made, you could see the chemistry was there. And I saw a lot of that starting to develop last year with Brendan Rice, but I also saw, I could tell he didn't trust Rice as much as he did Addison. And that was something that I kind of picked up on the more I watched. I could see some chemistry there, though. You could tell he knew where he was going to be, and he would look his way more often than not. That was the guy he wanted to trust the most.
Yeah. Well, think about what you just said, though. Having Addison obviously was a huge thing for Caleb Williams. Look at him coming into this situation with Keenan Allen and DJ Moore. I mean, that's just ridiculous. It would be, anybody who thinks Caleb Williams doesn't want to come to the Bears, he's a grown-ass man who understands this is the good situation. I mean, this or the Vikings are the only two situations where a player is coming into a team that needs a quarterback, where they're getting a situation to have a wide receiver that you can just trust and help you adjust to the NFL level.
Multiple of them. And I think you made the point right there. There's only 2 situations right now where they offer the quarterback an opportunity to come into a place where they can succeed as a rookie and have a situation around them where they can actually come in and not have to carry a football team, which when you're looking at even the Giants, but especially the Patriots and Commanders, even the Broncos are even starting to look like that. Yeah, they have Sean Payton, but Sam Mustipher's now did they sign him to be the starting center? Like, man, I don't want to go to Denver. Like, so, and it's also, I think this is such a unique opportunity where Caleb and his dad have also realized it. And I think that's something they've talked about and people made a bigger fuss about, was usually the number 1 pick is going into a terrible situation. We're already offering Caleb a unique opportunity where we won 7 games last year. We only have that pick because we stole it from the Panthers. So we're not the worst team in the league. So he's coming in already to a team that won 7 games last year and could have won 10 games. And then you're throwing Keenan Allen into that mix. You're throwing DeAndre Swift and Gerald Everett into it. as well as our other pick in the top 10, and a new offensive play caller and a coaching staff that seems ready to support him. I'm also really high on Kerry Joseph. I know a lot of people might not even know who Kerry Joseph is. He's our QB coach, but he's well respected around the league as well. He ran all of the quarterback drills at the NFL Combine and the Senior Bowl. So he's worked. Kerry Joseph was out there working with every single one of these quarterbacks almost that are in the draft, because almost all of them were either at the Senior Bowl or the Combine. And he was also working with guys at their pro days. I have a lot of respect for him. And then that's without even mentioning Shane Waldron, who I think is an elite level play caller. Maybe not elite of the elite, but he's a top 15 easy, in my opinion. Yeah, I love Javon Baker, too. I'll answer that real question. Yeah, I've talked about him a ton. I love Javon. Go ahead.
I mean, there's 19 wide receivers, guys. When you talk about wide receivers, there's 19 wide receivers that could easily be top 3 on the Bears. I mean, obviously we don't have a 3 right now, but on any team could be top 3 receiver on any team. And there's legitimately like 9 or 10 that could be wide receiver 1s on most teams. This is a deep wide receiver class, 100%. So we don't have to take one first round, but yeah, to go back to what you said, Swifty, there's Shane Waldron still has to prove himself as the play caller. He did enough in Seattle that everyone's hyped about him, and he was clearly offensive coordinator 1 sought after this offseason. The Bears, that's the nice thing about the Bears. They were able to take their pickings this year. Everyone wanted to go to Chicago. Everyone knew this was a special changing time for the Bears. This isn't year 1 of the rebuild. So this is absolutely set up to be beautiful for whatever happens with 975 and 122. The team, everyone says we don't have enough draft capital. I agree. There's a lot more need. There's a lot more depth that we need. But this, going back to what Ryan Poles said last year, this is not a 1-year rebuild. Now, you're sticking a quarterback in, like we've talked about, into a situation where he's coming into year 3 of this rebuild, but that doesn't mean we're Super Bowl contenders this year. There's 10 picks next year, and Ryan Poles already talked about how next year that lag of players that went back to school that weren't necessarily expected, there's going to be a lot of guys coming into the draft next year. There's a lot of prospects that could be a very deep draft. This draft, consensusly, there's really stacked the top 60 to 75, and then multiple analysts have said about end of 4th round, there's a drop-off where it's almost like you're getting undrafted free agents around 5, 6, and 7. So
that's a great point. Go ahead.
Though the fact that we've given up those 5th, 6th, and 7th rounders, that shows Poles' mentality and where he's going into this draft with. It wasn't critical for him. He'd rather get Ryan Bates with a 6th rounder and trade away our 7th rounder, trade away a 4th rounder for Keenan Allen. That was well used draft capital in a draft where it drops off after the 4th round.
Yeah, and that's something that Ryan Poles brought up, and other people have said it as well. I know I talked a lot the last 2 years about how deep the draft classes were because of COVID, and now we're kind of seeing a bounce back effect where this year's draft is not as deep. And I've heard people actually think it is because of COVID, but I think that effect is kind of bounced back this year, where the last 2 drafts were so deep, but they weren't as top heavy. They didn't have as much blue chip talent. Whereas this year, you have more blue chip talent than normal. I think you have even up to 20 plus blue chip players you could put in this draft, and up to even 40 or 45 guys that you could give first round grades to. And that's higher than most years. Whereas most years, I think there's somewhere between 10, 15, and 20. But the effect of that bounces back is you don't have the guys you can get in the 5th and 6th round that could come in and be instant depth guys and could potentially compete for starting jobs like Braxton Jones did 2 years ago, and like Terrell Smith and Roshan Johnson provided last year. This year, it's going to fall off a cliff because you don't have as much depth because the COVID year caught up to you. And then another factor that compiles on top of that is the NIL money. You had other players who probably would have came out this year who didn't, because they said, look, we can go back to school for 1 more year, make money, improve our draft stock, and then come back next year.
That's a good one. Yeah, and really a lot of those picks too. Terrell Smith, I think he's a quality backup, but he's had some really terrible games, and his grading out was not phenomenal. So
Rookie corners, I think that happens to almost all of them. I mean, even
yeah,
Tyreek
they go through.
Stevenson got cooked a lot. So did Kyler Gordon his rookie year. And I try to tell people that's cornerback is one of the hardest positions to play as a rookie in the NFL. Even Jalen Johnson a little bit got cooked up as a rookie. So
Yeah,
that happens.
All right, so let me transition this. We're going to get to where we were in the beginning, and I'm going to talk about some of the news of top 30. We both put a video out this morning on that. So those who haven't seen, Albert Breer reported along with DJ Moore and Tyreek Stevenson, at least there's probably more players that went to dinner with Caleb. Yesterday, Caleb Williams did his top 30 visit. So that means the Bears have all the medicals on him. If it was speculated, they might have had some before. It's official now. Like, he's done the medicals with them, as well as Dallas Turner and Tyler Guyton have both done their top 30 visits. And as we speak now, Rome Odunze is at least there, and it's rumored that Chop Robinson is in town right now too. So those two might be doing their top 30s. We know Rome is doing his right now, and it's rumored Chop is as well. And there might be more. They could do 2 or 3 of these at the same time. But those guys are in there right now. So from yesterday, we know the top 30, that's when they really press and do the workouts. They take him into the room. This is where they would have taken Caleb and put a play up on the board, had him tested or test his cognition, his memory. We've given you some plays. We've given you some playbook. We want to see what your memory is of it. We want to see how you understand football. So they've really drilled him now. And so now they've done that with Caleb. So the formalities are over there. They've seen it with Dallas Turner. They've seen it with Tyler Guyton. Tyler Guyton's a really high prospect tackle, for those who don't know him.
Oklahoma.
You've got him missing from your board here, buddy.
I added him. I updated it, but I haven't switched it out yet. But yeah, Tyler Guyton is also on this list. He's the one guy I missed. I saw him on Adam's video this morning, and then heard Albert Breer mention that he was in town with Caleb last night. So, or the night.
Oklahoma offensive tackle is who he is. They have 2. I really like their second offensive tackle too. What's his name? Will.
Is it Rouse?
Yeah, Walter Rouse.
Yeah,
Walter Rouse. He's a 4th-round prospect. I would be really excited if we got him in the 4th round if we don't get a tackle till anywhere else. But so we've had 3 done, probably Odunze and Chop today. So it's going to start flowing in. We're going to see some fun stuff with all the guys that are coming in. And those who don't know, last year from the top 30 visits we did select 4 guys from our top 30 visits. There was Gervon Dexter.
Our top 3 picks. Our top 3, all of our top 3, Darnell Wright, Gervon Dexter, and Tyreek Stevenson, all had top 30 visits. And then Zach Pickens we met with at the Senior Bowl. And so we met with Tyler Scott and Roshan Johnson at the Senior Bowl as well. So, I mean, those meetings.
And Tyler Scott was the other top 30.
Yeah, Tyler Scott was also top 30 as well. Yep. So we met with him at the Senior Bowl and top 30. This year, the guy you pointed out today as well was Zach Frazier has met with the Bears at the Senior Bowl, the scouting combine, and now a top 30 visit. So that's, and
they like him.
He wasn't healthy enough to run at the combine. That's another thing. He could have been healthy enough to work out for the Bears at the top 30 visit, because he did tell me he expected to be ready to run in early April. So that's something that, hey, watch out for Zach Frazier. I really love that guy. If we can somehow get a 2nd round pick, or they could even somehow use one of the picks from next year to come up and acquire another pick, Zach Frazier is my guy. He's a wrestler. If we can't get JPJ, get Zach Frazier. I want a new center.
Highlight that squeegee. That squeegee comment. I love it.
This one?
Yeah.
Oh, he's saying the Karen.
His name is hard to say, but I love it. Pancakes, baby.
Almond pancake. Wow, I love it.
That's a pretty good one. Yeah, I was a wrestler in high school too, so I love the wrestlers. They have some agility, and I would love to see us get Zach Frazier, but that makes you see the mentality of Poles. He's obviously considering a trade down from 9 to be able to pick up a 4th rounder. And with what I showed in my video yesterday, it's very possible for a team to overpay when they have to come up for a quarterback. And we can run through those, but there's a strong likelihood. Everyone assumes a lot of things when it comes to the draft, which is where my mentality of I want to explore everything. I want to understand the whys. The New England Patriots may not pick a quarterback. I know that sounds crazy, but they're in such a horrible position, like where the Bears were, that they might not take one round 1. and they might still pick up a veteran. They might trade for one, whatever. But if they can trade with Minnesota and get 11 and 23 to come up to number 3, if I'm New England, that's a great position with how bad they're decimated. And the same with the Giants. They may not pick a quarterback. They might roll with Daniel Jones and next year do a quarterback because they need offensive line depth. The whole trade with us in 2021 where we came up for Justin Fields and they got Evan Neal the next year with our first rounder. Evan Neal was a bust, and they've been struggling since that. They need a lineman. They also need a wide receiver bad. And if I'm New York Giants, there's no way I pass on Rome Odunze. Absolutely no way possible that I pass on him. Not for a quarterback when you have Daniel Jones for another year. I know you don't want to hear that. I don't want to hear it. Everyone knows I love Rome Odunze. He's my favorite. I want him. I want to take my Justin Fields jersey, take off the patch that says Fields on the back, put Odunze on, have him wear number 1. That's what I want, but I just don't. I don't know if it's going to happen.
Hey, that'd be a guy I wouldn't mind. I do not want to see Caleb Williams wear number 1, but if we got a wide receiver to wear number 1, we could reunite our 1+2 connection at wide receiver with Rome Odunze and DJ Moore, which, hey, that wouldn't be bad. But
hey, I'm hardcore on the train of having Caleb Williams wear number 12. I want to see us beat the Packers every year for the next decade with him wearing number 12. Or number 4 is fine too. Brett Favre, have him wear number 4. Did you see
the random report on Twitter about him wearing number 0?
It's bull crap.
I haven't. Yeah, I couldn't. I don't think it wasn't confirmed anywhere, and it was just some random guy. But someone said they heard that Caleb asked polls for number 0 during the dinner, and hey, this isn't something that I believe happened, but I kind of want to believe it. I wouldn't mind him wearing number 0. I think it'd be cool. First player ever to wear it.
Swift I wouldn't either. The other news was Marcus Mariota is officially going to be the first quarterback to ever wear 0.
Oh, yep. So Caleb could be the second and the first in Chicago to do it.
First ever with any 0.
Well, actually, technically, I think Mariota's scheduled to be the first to wear it. But if Caleb came out in a preseason game before he did and wore it, or even had it on the sideline for the Hall of Fame game, which we get to play before any other team, then technically he would be the first QB to ever wear 0.
We have the first game. You don't think Caleb would play in the Hall of Fame game?
No way.
Oh, come on.
I don't ever.
You got a rookie quarterback. We got to give him some experience.
The Hall of Fame game is full of
but he's a rookie.
Any starters. Like, I just know. If they're not playing any other starters, you're not going to risk the number 1 pick behind your backup offensive line when you have an extra preseason game anyway. Nah, I would say
throw
right
all
now,
the starters in there for one series. I understand, and I get how it is for the Hall of Fame game, but man, I really don't want them to do what they did with Justin Fields last year. Justin Fields needed to play more in the preseason.
I don't think they'll do that, but the Hall of Fame game's different. I've never seen it. In fact, it's been canceled like 3 of the last 4 years. So like it hasn't even been played the last few years, but the field wasn't ready one time. Something else happened, but when it is played, I don't see anyone playing in that game. But I mean, I'm guys, I'm not saying I wouldn't play him. I'm telling you, I don't think he will play. It just, that's how the NFL is. It's an extra game, and it's earlier than most teams are ready to play any of their starters. They haven't even really got into the full contact of training camp yet. You're in like the second week of camp, so like you barely even had any contact practices by then. I don't see it happen. I don't see him playing in the Hall of Fame game. If somebody wants to put some stakes on it, I will. I don't see him playing. Yeah, I haven't seen anybody play a star player. It'd be cool. I'd go to the game if I knew Caleb was going to play. Let's go see.
I want to go anyways because they're retiring Hester, man.
Inducted the Hall of Fame. Ooh.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite players ever. Speaking of steaks on it, I guess the steakhouse they went to was Sophia Steakhouse in Lake Forest. Did you ever go to that one?
I didn't. I looked up the menu though, and they had like $150 tomahawk steak, and they have some like good. Somebody posted the question on Twitter last night that if you were Caleb Williams going to the steakhouse, what would you order? So I pulled up the menu and I was like, I'm gonna get this steak appetizer, this bacon appetizer, and the tomahawk steak. Boom, quick. Done. $200 and some. Whoop.
Yeah. Hey, so some of you guys are making comments in there in the chat in the beginning of this
Swift and I are very seriously talking about doing a weekly show. We'll probably do it on our own channels and just take turns on our own channels for a little bit until we build up the momentum. But we're very, very seriously talking about doing a weekly show together for sure.
Yes, sir. I've been talking to him about that for a while before he even did our first show together. But yeah, that's Adam Mason. You don't know who that is? Let me put the names up. I hate, that's one thing I don't like about StreamYard. When you highlight a chat, it takes away the names, like on our cameras. Like, I don't understand why it does that, but it does it. I don't. It's like, oh, you got a chat up. We can't show the chat and the names at the same time. Like,
we can't show who you are.
Okay, yeah. Knowledge. So, I'm using the camera that Ken sent me from the 1970s. It's in black and white. It's a joke, but I don't know.
He just likes it in black and white. He likes to look vintage, likes to look classic.
I look better this way, okay? I'm better in black and white, okay? It's just how it is.
All right, so we just mentioned that I think Rome will be gone by 9. I'm hoping that it's not, guys. I really am. But a lot of analysts have 5 quarterbacks going in the top 10. I think that's ridiculous. Maybe 4. Really, 3 is realistic in the top 9. If 3 happens, there's no way Rome's there. That's when I see us trading down. Let's run through these top 10 and see what you think, see what I think. This is unscripted, guys. We didn't plan this out, but number 1 is very easily consensus now, Caleb Williams. The Bears are not trading out of 1. Those of you on the side there that are thinking that I'm just a Justin Fields fanboy, you haven't been paying attention to me for the last month. I just like to explore options. I'm always going to explore options. I still say it's 99% because I'm not discounting a draft day Herschel Walker type of trade. But yeah, it's clear we're taking Caleb Williams. Number 2, Washington's clearly taking a quarterback as well, whether that's Jaden Daniels, who's already made a top 30 visit there, or Drake May, or I'd be shocked to see JJ McCarthy there, but it would be kind of funny to see the Bears have Washington, D.C.'s hometown boy and the Commanders have Chicago's hometown boy. That'd be kind of funny to see, create a little rivalry. 3, do you think New England takes a quarterback or do you see them trading out? What do you think they do there?
I think those are the only 2 options. I don't think they're going to take another player. I've seen some people suggest they could take Marvin Harrison. I mean, I wouldn't be against it because I think he's the best player on the draft, and taking Marvin Harrison over the 3rd best QB in the draft probably be a smart thing long term. Make it better for whatever quarterback you do bring in. You could also build up the line. It would be kind of a tankier if they did that. But no, I think they're most likely going to take a quarterback. I think Robert Kraft there was kind of a battle there. And I read a long article on it on ESPN Plus about the what happened with Robert Kraft and Bill Belichick and Tom Brady. And one of the things that went down in the whole situation was they had that argument. Is it the quarterback or is it the system? Is it the coach? Is it Belichick and his system or is it Tom Brady? And Belichick convinced them that, hey, I can win with another quarterback. But then he let Tom Brady go and watched him win a Super Bowl, and that had to sting for Robert Kraft. Like, that's something that, and now that Belichick's gone, the old way and the way they did things in the past of, hey, we can trade down, we don't have to get a top quarterback. I think those days are gone, and I think if one of the quarterbacks they like is on the board, which I think would be Drake May. If the Commanders take Jaden Daniels, I think the Patriots will take Drake May right away. I think they could be scared about Jaden Daniels because of his frame and because of his slight frame and the way he runs. But if Drake May's there, I think they just take him and go on with it. But if he's not, maybe they trade the pick to the Vikings. And I don't want the Vikings to get Drake May, so I'm kind of rooting for the Commanders to take Drake May at 2. I don't even know what I want anymore other than Caleb Williams at 1.
I'd be more scared of the Commanders or the Vikings getting JJ McCarthy. That freaking scares me more than anything.
Really?
Like him coming into that system. Yeah. I know we don't see it the same way. And Jaden Daniels, that whole thing with the frame, get out of here with that. But we're not going to agree on everything. But if they don't, what you just said a minute ago, if they don't take quarterback, that's the only situation where they do trade down. Because imagine Washington or Minnesota trading up from 11 and going to 3 to get 11, giving them 11 and 23. That would set up the Patriots to be able to get 2 first-round picks this year, and they're the team that desperately needs that. So I can see that happening, but then I also wouldn't put it past them to do a Cardinals type of move from last year, trade up for even with us to make sure that the Broncos and the Raiders don't get ahead of them for a quarterback and trade up from 11 to 9. And the Bears could absolutely trade from 9 to 11 and get a second rounder from the Patriots. They'd still have 11 and 23, or 9 and 23. We'd have 11 and their second rounder. That's still a great situation for if I'm the Patriots. I love that situation because they trade up and get the fourth quarterback. The Bears trade back just a couple spots and still get a premium defensive end or wide receiver or tackle. I mean, there's so many things that can happen as we
I
get
think my
into
dream is I want the Vikings to not get one of the top 3 quarterbacks, but still trade both of their first round picks to move up and get the fourth best
as a Bears fan.
Yeah, that's what I want. I want them to come up, trade up to number 5. That's where right there with the Chargers, give up both your first round picks, maybe even a pick next year, and then take whichever quarterback didn't get picked in the top 3, which, hey, maybe that I think Jaden Daniels or Drake May could fall too. Like, you never know. It depends on what these guys like up there. We know Caleb's going to be gone, and I imagine Drake May goes in the top 3 too. Most likely we're going to see Jaden Daniels and Drake May both go in the top 3, but there's a chance a team falls for JJ McCarthy. I could see it. I wouldn't do it.
Well,
but I could
all
see
4 of those are the ones that are now considered to be top 10. And that's the best scenario for the Bears because then we can get Rome at 9. And
we'll get somebody at 9, definitely. And let's knock on
I want
wood.
Rome.
Well, that's what I want too. But I mean, he could go. He could still go. Even if JJ goes 5, he could still go 6 to the Giants. I think that's one thing people keep forgetting. Yeah.
So a lot of people aren't realizing the tackle class that we have here, though. It kind of gets overlooked. This really is the draft for wide receiver 1, cornerback or defensive backs 2, specifically cornerbacks, and then tackles 3. This is a strong class for all 3 of those. Next year would be the defensive end class. We don't need a quarterback, but he's always looking for him. So in the 4th round, we could definitely snag one. But those are the ones this year. So if we don't get a wide receiver round 1, it's not the end of the world. We just wouldn't be getting wide receiver 1, which is what I want. An X receiver, a high point receiver. I mean, Rome with his 75% contested catch is only mirrored in the last half a decade by Jalen Waddle and Justin Jefferson, which is ridiculous to me to be able to pass on someone like that. But if he squeaks down to 9, take him in a heartbeat. But the tackles in this class are phenomenal too. I'm not really on board with what people are saying with Olufushanu just because he played with Caleb in high school. To me, he's just not as stacked as, I mean, he's kind of one of those to me that's hyped up to be hyped. I would have him between 20 and 30. I know a lot of people don't agree with that, but I don't ever have my board where everybody else is either.
There's something missing with Olufushanu. I mean, I don't want to make too big of a deal about his hand size, but he had the smallest hands at the combine for an offensive tackle or someone his size. I think in combine history, he had like 8-inch hands. It was tiny.
Well, then he got injured at the combine. He had injury history, not severe injury history, but his freshman year he had some injury. He played well the last couple of years, but then he got injured at the combine. He just, to me, he kind of makes me worry. And so anytime that they make me worry, he's not Joe. I mean, the Joe Alt this year is, people don't realize he's clear cut number 1. Like, there is nobody ahead of Joe Alt. You saw
I
earlier.
love what Immortal said right here. He might be my favorite tackle in the draft. Is Troy Fatanu out of
I like Fatanu. I just wouldn't take him at 9.
No, but if we could trade back and get him somewhere in the teens, whew,
I think
I think he's the guy this year that goes higher than most people think. I think in most mocks I see him in the 20s. I think Fatanu or Fatanu is, I think, how you pronounce it. I think he goes somewhere between 10 and 18, 19 range. And I think I could see him going as early as 10 to 12. I don't think he makes it to the top inside the top 10, but I think he's right outside of that. I think he's on some teams' boards in the top 10, right around number 10 or 11.
I agree with you. I mean, we got Tennessee that can easily be taking a tackle. If the Chargers trade back, they would be taking a tackle. I don't see them taking tackle at 5 unless it's Joe Alt. And that could very well happen. Chargers could do that. You got the Titans. You got the Jets clearly going after tackle. yeah, there's going to be
I
3 or
think the
4
Jets
guys.
might not take tackle now. So
You're
after
right.
they signed Tyron Smith, I think the guy I think the Jets could go with, Brock Bowers.
The
for
sure they could. I think you'd have a lot of pissed off Jets fans.
What, you think they'd be mad? I don't
know.
Well,
who's the big Jets guy? Not Rich Eisen. Who's on national media?
Oh, I'm not sure. I don't know. Yeah,
someone
said it.
He even said
he fits perfectly. That they want to win now.
Pissed off.
That's an impact player to come in and help Rodgers out right away.
You know who did a top 30 visit there yesterday? Rome Odunze.
But we pick in front of them. So
I agree. Yeah, but he also did a top 30 visits with the New York Giants yesterday too.
Stop it, Giants. Brian Dable, don't do it. You like neighbors better. Don't make me Photoshop some pictures of Rome Odunze.
I didn't know you were into dirty media there, buddy.
I did it with Marv earlier. It was fake, just as a joke, though. But, Caleb QB1, May QB2. Caleb is a first-round pick. 2 seconds better than May. I don't know. I think what he's going with there, I think Knowledge is saying is Caleb so much better than May that he's worth not trading down, but that's not a conversation I want to have. Hey, Swift, I think we should trade back and draft Xavier Worthy.
We have fast receivers.
Let me get your thoughts on Xavier Worthy, because to me, I'm not sold on him. Yeah, I think the 40-yard dash time is going to make him even more hyped. The guy with that much speed you should see him making more plays on tape, and I didn't. I think there's a lot of track speed there. He didn't get as much separation as Malik Neighbors did on film. So to me, I'm not a huge Xavier Worthy guy, and I think his incredible 40 time is going to cause him to get overdrafted even more. And I don't want that.
The small frame contested catch was low, so I didn't love it for a Bears fit. I had him a late second rounder. I realized most people had him early second. I didn't bring him up my board just because he ran lightning fast. We already have some fast receivers. Tyler Scott is very, very quick. Bayless Jones is quick. We have fast receivers. We don't need fast. We need a big, high point X receiver contested catch guy. That's what we need. Keenan Allen was slow on his pro day and on his combine because he was injured, but he's not slow. DJ Moore is not slow, but we have some quick guys. We don't need quick guys.
I think Keenan Allen's going to play a lot of X receiver for us this year too. I think that's something a lot of people view him as a slot receiver only, and he was labeled that. He did play a lot in the slot, but last year he only played, according to PFF, it was like 51 to 53% in the slot. So he ran over almost half his routes on the outside. So he's a guy and he's 6'2" and 7/8, almost 6'3". He's a guy who can play on the outside, and he is a high point guy as well. So I think they envision him playing a lot of X for us. DJ Moore can play slot, so can Tyler Scott, and there's a lot of slot receivers in this draft too. So I don't think they got Keenan Allen necessarily to play as much slot as most people expect. I think he will play on the outside.
59% in the slot last year was Keenan Allen. I think he's playing the slot for us.
DJ played. Well, what did DJ? Can you look up how much DJ played in the slot?
Because I think just the one game where he kicked butt. I mean, DJ can play great in this. Any number one receiver can play multiple positions, though.
And that's something I think they like. Another thing is, I know Getsy did that a lot, and we've moved on from Getsy. But I think that's just something the Bears might continue doing with this system, is rotating receivers in and out at times, moving guys around, moving them all over the field.
DJ played 21.6% of his snaps in the slot, with his biggest game coming in that Detroit game where he played quite a bit out of the slot.
And I think he's great out of the slot. So that's the thing is if you get another receiver where all three of them can work out the slot, and then you can move Keenan Allen out to the outside. I love it, man.
Well, that's the point I made on one of my videos earlier, is a lot of people don't realize that his highest rated game, where his passer rating when targeted, outside of the two big games, the Washington and Denver games where he just exploded and Justin Fields had his 4 touchdowns in each of those games, his highest passer rating when targeted game was that Detroit game where he was out of the slot for 40% of snaps. 148.1 passer rating when targeted. The only two higher were the Washington game at 152 and the Denver game at 158. Every other game was lower of passer rating when targeted. So he clearly played really well out of the slot.
Yeah, and that's something. And with DJ and Keenan both bringing that to the Bears already, you're gonna Cole Kmet could do it as well. Cole Kmet can also line up in the slot at times as well. And then when you look at some of the guys we could add late in the draft, like a Luke McCaffrey or a Taj Washington or Malik Washington, I think we're gonna have a lot of options this year. And I'm excited about this offense. What was a comment here? Yeah, I definitely Ricky Pearsall is another one. Yeah,
those
we
12
all saw
personnel
that
sets,
incredible.
Even the 13 personnel sets that Waldron's going to bring, you're going to see things mixed up more. You're going to see more personality to this offense. You're going to see more pre-snap stuff. You're going to see some motion. It's going to be fun to see what he ends up doing. And you see that what's his name? Brock Wright ended up having his contract signed. I was pissed off about that. I kind of wanted us to go after him a little bit. Cheap.
We
dirt
need that
cheap,
third
man.
tight end, yeah.
Let's talk about Caleb for a minute. A lot of you guys are focusing on Caleb a lot. Let's talk about this just for a minute. Swifty did a video yesterday that really pointed out some positives of Caleb. I've never been anti-Caleb. I've been on the mindset that he is not best in this draft, and I want him to prove himself to me. Doesn't mean I'm right about everything. And I want that more than anything. Just like we talked yesterday, maybe it was in our own chat, maybe one of the ones I posted on Twitter. The big thing that everyone wants, highlight that Lilia Munoz one right there. Why does Adam dislike Caleb so much? I don't dislike Caleb. I've never disliked Caleb. I've wanted the haul. I've wanted the haul from day one. It's not happening. The Bears clearly see something in Caleb that they're enamored with. They clearly see something, and we trust Ryan Poles. He worked with Kansas City when they drafted Pat Mahomes. I said this yesterday to Swifty. I said the best case scenario for me is if we put this situation in the best place possible, and he ends up somewhere between Joe Burrow and Pat Mahomes. It's unrealistic to think he's going to be Pat Mahomes, but if we can end up somewhere in between there, that's fantastic. I just need to keep researching him. I need to fall in love with him. I need to have him ball out for us before I can be the guy that's the Caleb Williams homer. I can't do that day one. That's just how I am with this franchise and watching quarterbacks get recycled. I even watched it with Jay Cutler. I was all on board, and I still didn't buy a Jay Cutler jersey. I bought a Brandon Marshall jersey, and I wore that jersey to the first game at Levi Stadium where Brandon Marshall got 3 touchdowns, and that's just the way I am. But something I was looking at yesterday after I watched your video, I was doing a deeper dive into Caleb. So quarterbacks have a range of about 5 miles per hour that they throw between. So let's say a quarterback throws between on a soft touch, 41 miles an hour, on their hard touch, 46 mile an hour, just on average. This is stupid statistical stuff, but I'm bringing it up because it kind of reinforces some of the stuff I'm learning about Caleb Williams. So I watched your video, and it pointed out a lot of the good he is under pressure. Caleb Williams has a range with his ball that's consistently 12 to 15 miles an hour different, which means he can throw touch on it different than other quarterbacks. Does that make sense? So instead of just being a 60 mile an hour thrower, he can throw at 45 miles an hour and still be just as accurate, which was interesting to me. That's a positive. That's a huge positive because other quarterbacks can only adjust it around 5 miles an hour. He can adjust at 10 to 15 miles an hour and still have the same touch, precision. So that's a good thing to me. I want to see more stuff like that. I want to see him get into a game and show that stuff and win me over. And I think a lot of fans are the same way. It's not anti-Caleb Williams. It's I wanted the haul. I want all these draft picks. I want to rebuild now. I want to get it done. But if Caleb Williams comes out and balls out, that's all that anybody cares about. We all just want the Bears to win a Lombardi trophy.
Yep. Now, I will say you did put out some tweets out there that she said, I think this is I don't know, that you did get a little personal with him on Twitter. I don't know if you ever did on YouTube, but there was definitely some negativity on there on Twitter. I've seen it. And I think a lot of us out there. It's been a tough time. Like, there's been so much division and stuff on Twitter that, man, you can't say anything without someone making it about the quarterback. It's been like this for the past 3 to 4 months. I would make a video or tweet about anything. It could be about our offensive line or even about our draft picks or a mock draft. And no matter what it was about someone would comment either about Caleb Williams or Justin Fields. And I've had videos in the last few weeks where on the same videos, I've had people call me a Justin hater, a Caleb hater, a Justin lover, and a Caleb lover. And I'm like, the fan base is just kind of out of control. And I don't think everything needed, there was way too much. I've talked about it so much. There was way too much Justin Fields versus Caleb Williams. And now there's too much. Okay, let's talk about Caleb Williams personally when none of us really know Caleb Williams. And I think that's just getting way overblown on social media. And I think it's something that I don't care about. I care about what people do on a football field. I don't care about what they do off the football field as much. I do care. I do think it's different. Caleb Williams definitely has a different personality than any quarterback we've ever had. And seeing how quiet Justin Fields was and how much he worked, and then going to Caleb Williams, I think it will be an adjustment for some people, especially some older school people. But it's not something I'm ever going to make a big deal out of. I think it's just, show me, what do you do on the football field? That's what matters to me. And you mentioned it. I talked about it yesterday. Caleb Williams in the red zone. This is just absolutely disgusting. When I saw this number in his career at USC, 61 touchdowns to 1 interception in the red zone. Think about that as a Bears fan, how many times we've seen Jay Cutler, Mitch Trubisky, even Justin Fields with stupid interceptions in the red zone. And one of Fields' ones was one that wasn't even his fault. He threw it, hit one of his offensive linemen in the helmet, bounced into the air, and ended up getting intercepted. We've seen Jay Cutler throw interceptions to BJ Raji inside the 5-yard line. We've seen so much dumb play in the red zone. And I think what stands out even more than the touchdown to interception ratio here is he only threw 177 passes in the red zone, right? 177, and 61 of them went for touchdowns. That's more than 1 out of every 3 passes he threw in the red zone went for a touchdown. And that's insane to me. And I think that's something that we can't overlook, no matter how you feel about him as a prospect. That's something where, honestly, it's just like, it's ridiculous. It was said right there. It's just absolutely ridiculous. I think Fields had really good numbers in that. His was like 33 touchdowns to 2 or 3, and I think it was 33 to 3. So it was like not bad, but 61 to 1, that's video game type numbers that I haven't seen when I looked at all the other guys, and I expected Jaden Daniels, because I had written up most of my video without even looking at Jaden Daniels or Drake May, because I was just focused on Caleb. But then I got like halfway through it and I was like, let me just go ahead and look up Caleb or Drake May and Jaden Daniels as well. And I expected Jaden to have much bigger numbers than Caleb did there, simply because he's been a starter for 5 years. I thought there's no way Caleb is going to have better numbers than Jaden Daniels did, but he did. And it's like, how does that even happen? Like, when you're thinking about it, let me pull those up in just a second.
I like the
I have
video
those
you put
as
out.
well. Like, that's crazy. Like, Jaden's been a starter for 5 years.
Yeah, but 5 years, people progress different ways. We all knew Caleb Williams was a prospect coming out of high school. We all knew that. Jaden Daniels wasn't the same. He was a high prospect, not the same.
But with 2 extra years as a starter, he threw 22 less touchdowns in the red zone.
One of those was a
2
COVID
extra
year.
full seasons. That's
I
tough,
get you,
man.
but you're not scrubbing on Jaden Daniels though, man. He won a Heisman this year. It's not like he's terrible, but I like seeing
even
the
with
stuff
those
about
even with those Heisman numbers, his 5-year career, he still only threw 14 touchdowns on third down. I mean,
not only. I mean, dude, you're talking about something that I love that you brought this out. I love this video by you, because this is the stuff I want to see on Caleb, the stuff that I've been looking into now, because those types of things are going to win the fan base over. Now, if he does that at the NFL level, it's going to win us over even faster. If we're down to the Packers, fourth quarter, we're down in the in 2 minutes left and we're down by 6 and we come back and we win with a third down touchdown throw, this fan base will go absolutely nuts. They're going to eat it up. We're going to be Caleb Williams throwing a parade mid-season instead of after the Super Bowl. So I love seeing that type of stuff.
I'll address 2 comments here. This is the one. Immortal said it. That's my biggest issue with Caleb Williams.
Yeah.
If people want to talk
And
about
his
a
footwork.
reason to be scared or worried about Caleb Williams, the fumbles are clearly it. It's how he holds the ball when he scrambles. It's loose and away from his body. And then the amount of fumbles he had, it was 32 in 3 seasons, which was more than any quarterback in the last 5 to 10 years coming out of college. And that's something he has to fix. But that's something that is fixable. He played a ton of hero ball. And that's something that in the NFL, we know what Eberflus preaches on a weekly basis. Protect the football. They turned Justin Fields from a wide open playmaker to pretty much a game manager that barely threw the ball. So I don't think that will be an issue. I think they will teach him to protect the ball. And then the other thing here, he doesn't win games. I mean, I just showed you his stats in the 4th quarter, which were ridiculous. Quarterbacks never win games on their own. That's something I talked about with Justin Fields as well. The record is never going to be on the quarterback solely. There's 22 players that are starting on the field. There's multiple coaches. You got play callers on both sides of the ball. There's just so much that goes into a football game that it's